The most proven guy is Kobe Paysour, and he's coming off of a year last year that really didn't live up to the hype that I think most people expected he was going to be able to do. 21 catches, 365 yards, no touchdowns in 13 games for Carolina. And part of it was that he wasn't on the field at all times. The other part of it was that they were trying to play him on the outside. I would love for Carolina to come to the realization that I think we all believe at this point from seeing him throughout his career. When he was Josh Downs' backup back in 2022, he was incredibly effective. 29 catches, 324 yards, and 4 touchdowns that season in limited reps when Josh Downs was out, was playing in the slot, and that was where he was most effective. In 2023, played in the slot again. Played in 5 games, 22 catches, 282 yards, 3 touchdowns in the first 5 games of the season, but then unfortunately goes down with a broken foot, ends up trying to come back late in the season, breaks his other foot, and now, we're at the position where we're at with him where, really, for Carolina, they're looking for him to step up and become that guy that he was before. Is he going to be able to do that? I'm not sure. But I do think that one thing that would help him is if they moved him back inside to slot receiver. I believe that the best 3 starters for Carolina this year would be to have Jordan Shipp and Chris Culliver on the outside and to have Kobe Paysour in the slot. But I don't think that is how they're going to use him. So he's going to have to find a way to be more effective on the outside. And hopefully, getting this offseason, another year under his belt, away from the broken feet. Hopefully that will help him be more effective this year for Carolina.
Yeah, I would love to see him in the slot. I think even if he's not there primarily, I don't see Bill Belichick and Freddie Kitchens and the offensive staff forcing him to play primarily on the outside, because if they go back and watch his film where he was at his best, it would be, it'd be coaching malpractice to not have him in the slot, at least, I don't know, a third of the time. I'm with you. I think the 3 best receivers in your base offense should be, Chris Culliver, Jordan Shipp on the outside, Paysour on the slot, and then you go from there. And then you see how kind of how the depth guys and some of the other guys that you added, whether it was in high school recruiting or through the transfer portal, how that room ultimately shakes out. I do think, as much as I'm a big believer in Shipp and him individually, I do think this is going to be a committee approach at wide receiver, which is not something foreign to what you saw from Bill Belichick in the NFL. Outside of when Tom Brady had Randy Moss and Wes Welker in the mid to late 2000s, it was a bunch of no-name guys at the wide receiver position. And they had a group of dudes, 5, 6, 7 dudes that would produce, and then they would mix the tight ends into the passing game as well. I think you're going to try to see Bill Belichick try to replicate that same formula at the college level, just because it makes you so much harder to defend. Whereas in the past couple years, even though Carolina had exceptional quarterback play, you knew where the ball was maybe going to when you needed to convert that 3rd and 6 or whatever it was. And so I think there's a clear distinction between who your best 3 receivers are and who they're maybe going to count on the most. But I do think this will be a position group that, as you have it broken down into tiers, I think they are going to ask guys from tier 1 through tier 4 to produce at different points this upcoming season.
Yeah, it could be. And I think that's certainly something that could be on the table. Now, the other guy that's in tier 1 that I have with Kobe Paysour is Jordan Shipp. And I think he's gotten there here from what we've seen this offseason. Again, we don't get a lot of reports out of camp. We didn't get anything really back in the spring. But it really says something to me that Jordan Shipp, as a sophomore, is a guy that was chosen to speak during a press conference back in June. He gets chosen to come to ACC kickoff, and he's a guy that is being talked about as one of the biggest leaders on the team. I think that's huge for him. And you look at him, in 162 snaps last year, hauled in 9 passes for 114 yards and a touchdown. I would say decent numbers for a true freshman that was stuck in a room that was pretty packed last year. But now, there's more responsibility on his plate. I think this is the year where you see him step up. And when I look at him, I see one of the more complete receivers that Carolina's had, a guy that can really affect all 3 areas of the game, the deep, intermediate, and short passing games. And that's something that Carolina's really looking for. And they want that guy on the outside, someone that you can trust and go to in those important situations. Not saying that Kobe Paysour can't be that guy. I do think that we saw that ability in him back in 2023, but we still don't know if he's going to look like that version of him or if that version is behind him due to the injuries. If that's the case, then Jordan Shipp is in perfect position to become the leading receiver for this team. And I think even if you do have a healthy Paysour, there's going to be a battle here because Shipp really just brings that much talent to the table and has a chance to be Carolina's next great wide receiver.
Yeah, I think he's the most explosive, dynamic, game-changing wide receiver on this roster. He's a guy that, as you mentioned, I think it can make impactful plays at all 3 levels in the passing game. And I do think he'll be a guy that he'll be featured early and often, and they're going to try to get him the football because of what I think he can do with the football in his hands. I think, there's a physicality there that you like. When he catches the football, he can break a tackle or 2. He's got the speed necessary to run away from defenders. And I think the best point you brought up is he doesn't. You don't get the media responsibilities that he was given by accident as a sophomore playing under Bill Belichick. And so I think there was something there from a leadership aspect that they really had to to put him behind the microphone as often as they did here this past summer. And so I think he's an easy kid to root for. And I think he embodies what we want a Tar Heel to be on and off the football field. And so I do think that he's poised to, I don't know if it's going to be like Josh Downs level a breakout, but I do think this could be a guy that could put up, 60, 65 catches. I think 1,000+ yards is definitely on the table for him. And I would say at least 8 touchdowns or eight receiving touchdowns. Very much attainable for him as well. And if Carolina can get that kind of production out of him, you can keep Kobe Paysour healthy. I think this passing game, as it evolves, will become more dangerous. It could really unlock not just Gio Lopez, but the entire offense as well under Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah, for reference, that breakout season that you're talking about with Josh Downs, 101 catches, 1,335 yards receiving, and 8 touchdowns. I think that might be a little bit lofty, but I mean, getting to maybe, the numbers that he had, not necessarily the amount of catches, because as a slot receiver, as someone that was relied on that heavily, I think Carolina this year is going to have more options that they're going to be spreading it around to. I think, as you said, really guys from tier 1 to potentially even tier 4 will be called upon to step up and make plays this year. But his senior year, Josh Downs, 1,029 yards and 11 touchdowns. If you told me that's what Shipp had this season, I wouldn't think that was the craziest thing. I mean, we talked about it when we were talking about the running backs. I think him and Davian Goss are the guys that you feel the most confident in as breakout players this year. And I think that there's just, for some reason with Jordan Shipp, when I watched him back in high school, I mean, this kid was as reliable as it got. He had the most reliable hands on the field. Anything that you threw his way was going to be caught. And it really was highlighted by a huge game that started off his senior season where, again, Providence Day High School playing against, I forget who it was that they were even playing against in that game, but it was one of the best teams in the state. All the attention is on a guy like Kendra Harrison, who was there at the time, and Jordan Shipp was the guy that really shined through in that game. So, yeah, I think he's certainly going to be a guy that's going to have a huge season this year for Carolina, and is going to be one of the reasons why this passing game will be relied upon, I think, as the season goes along, and can be one of the better units in all of college football.